The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own. They may not be the opinions of this network, their groups, or other organizations they may be involved with.
Ganja my meditation, ganja my brain. Ganja weed take away my stress and strain. Ganja my meditation, ganja in my brain. Marijuana take away my stress and pain. Ganja my meditation, ganja in my brain. Marijuana take away the stress and pain. Ganja is the medication, ganja is the cure. Police of them a fight the marijuana for sure. Purify me heavens and they make me feel pure. 100 way to Cali, we be bring it on door. Ganja in the meditation, ganja in my clothes. No offense, I'm smoking marijuana around you. Ganja in me daily, ganja on me currency. Ganja is the currency and daily pay. Give me the revelation, it's not to get too much and it's been growing. So long, that's why we call it.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Ganja News Update for this Monday, July the 22nd, 2024, episode 88, here on NOK Network, the video news podcast focused on cannabis news being reported in mainstream media. I'm joined by my amazing joint host, Tarra Simpson. Hello, Tarra. How are you today?
Hi, Ron. I'm great. Another fantastic week has flown by as per usual. But doing well today. Doing well.
Yeah, I can't believe how fast the week's gone by, and the weekend for that matter. I had a trip up to Quebec, moving my son and his wife and family, and that it was a short move, 6 minutes down the road. So, but a 4-hour drive from here.
Oh, and, absolutely.
The bathroom break and smoke breaks, that 4-hour drive turns into more like a 7-hour drive for me. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but again, I mean, they only move 6 minutes down the road, but you still have to pack everything. You still have to load a truck. Yeah. You still have to move it all down there, and then unpack it, right?
Yeah, so but you know what? You know what? Now that I'm
50, you know,
but now that I'm the old guy, I don't have to do all the heavy lifting. So I'm the coffee runner and stuff like that. So.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. I like those kind of moves.
Yeah. It was kind of, and also the granddaughter watcher. I can't forget that. So
everyone's got to do that. That's important. Little kids under heavy furniture being moved is just a bad idea.
Yep. A couple of times we had to grab. She's only 2. A couple of times we had to grab her out of the way.
Yeah, she's like, "Where are you taking my stuff, man?"
Yeah. So anyway. Yeah. So anyways, well, I guess we should probably get on with the show. So I guess now for our top stories in cannabis news. We got the first one coming up here. There we go. This one's coming to us from StratCan. Let's see. July 16th. Okay, BC provides updates to cannabis sampling rules. This is from July 16th by David Brown. BC's cannabis branch has provided updates on its cannabis sampling rules for cannabis marketing licensees. The BC Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch, the LCRB, first updated its regulations in September 2023 to allow cannabis retail store licensees and their employees to accept samples from a federal license holder. In BC, a marketing license authorizes the licensee to promote cannabis for the purpose of selling it in British Columbia. A federally licensed cannabis producer is required to have a marketing license to promote their products in BC.
Interesting. Cannabis retail stores and farm gate stores, PRS licensees, as well as Section 119 authorization holders are no longer required to pay a nominal fee for product samples. They may also share product samples they receive from federal license holders and marketing licensees with other cannabis store licensees and authorized holders. All licensees and authorized holders Authorization holders must also ensure they keep records relating to cannabis samples. The newest update to the province's handbook for marketing of non-medical cannabis in BC clarify that the amount of cannabis in the cannabis sample may not exceed 3.5 grams of dried cannabis or the equivalent amount per class of cannabis. This is the equivalent to 1 gram of cannabis extract or 3 cannabis seeds. However, an exemption applies if the class of cannabis is not available in 3.5 grams or less of dried cannabis or an equivalent amount. In that case, the smallest available amount of class of cannabis may be provided as a sample. A marketing licensee cannot provide cannabis samples to non-licensees, such as patrons or members of the public. Interesting.
Yeah. Marketing licensee must keep records respecting cannabis samples received from a federal license holder that contain the following information. 1, the unique excise tax identifier from the original packaging of the cannabis sample. 2, the LDB SKU for the cannabis that the sample is from, that is registered under the Cannabis Distribution Act. 3, the date the licensee received the cannabis sample. 4, the name and license number of the federal license holder that provided the cannabis sample to the marketing licensee. And 5, the amount of cannabis for each class of cannabis product in the sample received. A marketing licensee must also keep records respecting cannabis samples provided to another licensee that contain the following information. 1, the unique excise tax identifier from the original packaging of the cannabis sample. 2, the LDB SKU for the cannabis that the sample is from, that is registered under the Cannabis Distribution Act. 3, the date the licensee provided the cannabis sample. 4, the name and license number of the non-medical cannabis retail store licensee that received the cannabis sample. 5, the amount of cannabis for each class of cannabis product in the sample provided. A marketing licensee may also, I'll start that one over again. A marketing licensee may possess cannabis samples if the cannabis sample was supplied to the marketing licensee by a federal license holder of a cultivation or processing license. The marketing licensee is authorized under the Cannabis Act, Canada, and the cannabis sample is from cannabis registered under the Cannabis Distribution Act. Wow.
Wow, those are some heavy regulations still. A marketing licensee may supply cannabis samples to non-medical cannabis retail store licensees for no consideration if the cannabis meets the following requirements. The supply of cannabis sample by the marketing licensee is authorized under the Cannabis Act of Canada. The cannabis sample was previously supplied for no consideration to the marketing licensee by a federal license holder of a cultivation or processing license, and the cannabis sample is from cannabis that is registered under the Cannabis Distribution Act. A marketing licensee who offers or gives or agrees to offer or give a cannabis sample for no consideration to a licensee or an employee of a licensee is exempt from provincial rules about offering or providing inducement in respect of that offer, gift, or agreement, as long as the amount of cannabis in the sample does not exceed the maximum amount specified by the general manager for the class of cannabis product in the sample. The same applies to a marketing licensee who requests, accepts, or agrees to accept cannabis sample for no consideration from a federal license holder or a license for cultivation or a license for processing. They are also exempt from provincial rules against requesting or accepting inducements in respect of that request, acceptance, or agreement, as long as the amount of cannabis in the sample does not exceed the maximum amount specified by the general manager for the class of cannabis in the sample. Wow.
Just it's a bunch of words, regulations, and right.
Yeah. And again, they still can't, provide samples to, say, us who walk in and be like, hey, really thinking about this product, do you have a sample, right? Like, even if it's, a pre-roll, I mean, that's smart marketing. But to
maybe
the public,
maybe one day, but I don't know.
Right.
Maybe public opinion will win over this such nonsense, right?
Yeah, it's just very highly regulated for something that is like completely safe and legal, and you know how I feel about all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, you can take this next story away if you wish.
Yeah, so this one comes to us from CTV News, and it's out of Winnipeg, and was written by Devin McKendrick and Danton Unger, July 16th of this year. And the headline is Manitoba Cannabis Company seeks creditor protection. Yet another one bites the dust. With a $28 million tab and no immediate way to pay it off, changes are coming to a Winnipeg-based cannabis company. Delta 9 announced late Monday in a news release it's seeking creditor protection from Alberta's Court of King's Bench. This comes as it owes over $40 million to a Calgary-based cannabis company, SNDL Inc., which purchased the debt last week and demanded Delta 9 repay around $28 million. Delta 9 said in a news release that a number of reasons led to the decision to seek creditor protection, including its inability to repay such debt over the next 12 months, and SNDL's aggressive actions in demanding the repayment. Wow.
You owe $40 million.
Right.
Time to pay the piper, right? Anyways, we're going to carry on here. Along with the creditor protection, Delta 9 said it has entered an agreement with Ontario-based cannabis retailer Fika, it's Fika, which will provide up to $16 million to help pay off the debt, but in return wants to acquire Delta 9's retail stores, logistics, and distribution business. There's a quote here: "We appreciate the hard work of all of Delta 9's employees, management, executive, and board of directors over the past 12 years to help create what has been an incredible growth story for Delta 9, said John Arbuthnot, the CEO of Delta 9 in the release. We look forward to working with Fika through the restructuring process to unlock the value of Delta 9's assets for stakeholders and to create the next chapter of growth for Delta 9. The company noted all of its directors, other than John and his father, Bill Arbuthnot, have resigned. Speaking with CTV News Winnipeg Tuesday afternoon, John said the plan would see Fika take over the retail business, making Delta 9 a private entity.
Interesting. It is business as usual, though, through the process. Stores will remain open. Employees will keep coming to work across our network of businesses, he said. We don't anticipate any material changes both through the process or immediately after. From our perspective, we have built a group of businesses that are quite sound and have the staying power here within our industry. He noted there has been escalating hostilities from SNDL, and the creditor protection will give the company time to work with Fika to take steps towards the company's future. Delta 9 was established in 2012 as a medical cannabis distributor it became a publicly traded company in 2017. In January of 2023, the company laid off 40 employees. It was part of Delta 9's plan to streamline cultivation and capacity at its Winnipeg facilities. At the time, the company said it was to also reduce company and investor costs. In Manitoba, there are currently 209 Manitoba retail cannabis licenses, according to the Liquor, Gaming, and Cannabis Authority of Manitoba. Since the legalization of cannabis in 2018, the number of pot shops in the province has been steadily growing. Weilong Yao, a professor of entrepreneurship and innovation at the University of Manitoba, said the growth may begin to slow down. We have seen lots of booming of the industry. We've also seen lots of ups and downs of the industry, Jan said. I think the growing is still there. The only thing is it's not really growing as fast as we saw in the past. Jan noted it is still an extremely young industry and more changes could come in the future. So I think it's the other part of the question that I think about is we really don't know how the regulation will continue to change. He said the industry has been calling for further deregulation of the market, and that could impact how businesses perform. So in that sense, the current number of stores may actually be fine if there's further deregulation. There is enough push from the industry for further changes in regulations. So when the regulations change, the competitive situation will change again. And that's part of what's killing that industry to begin with, was all of the regulations, right? We said that
right from the beginning.
Because regulation means money, right? It's a license for this, a license for that, paperwork for this, paperwork for that. I mean, that all costs money. And when you spend that kind of money on something, and then you have to charge that much more for it, and people just don't want to pay that and don't have the funds to pay that. And that's where everything's slowing down.
Yep. And quite often what happens is when you, the more regulations you get, the more hands you get that have to deal with it. It's not just one company or whatever. It's another agency or another company or another this. It's just a whole level
of nonsense for a plant.
Right?
It's a plant, people.
I know. It's a plant. Anyways.
A non-toxic plant. Oh my God, we need to regulate the hell out of it.
Thank you. So I'd be interested to find out how many deaths there are or severe illnesses by either accidental consumption of like poinsettias or some other house plants that there's no regulations on.
Right. Like, come on. Yeah. It's mind blowing. I hear you.
I know. Anyways, here's our last story before the break here. It is coming. This story is coming to us from Marijuana Moment, and this is actually the story that we skipped over last week.
Yes.
It's not a really long story, but it's got a little bit of information in there. We got the time here to cover it today, and it's kind of a weird story, but we'll see. Federal Science Agency begins selling most carefully quantified cannabis ever sold for $174 a gram. What? This was published on July 9th, 2024 by Ben Adlin. So let's see what this is all about, eh? As part of an ongoing effort to help testing laboratories more reliably determine the potency and purity of marijuana and hemp, a federal science agency has begun selling packages of what it's called, quote, some of the most carefully quantified cannabis ever sold, end quote. Picking up 4.5 grams of the stuff will cost $783 or $174 a gram. Far more expensive than the cannabis that's commercially available available in states across the country. The hemp product sold by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NSIT, isn't intended for consumption. Rather, it's a tool to help labs calibrate their analysis of cannabinoids and toxic elements in both hemp and higher THC marijuana. To ensure that their measurement methods are working properly, labs can analyze a bit of this material, NSIT said in a press release about its new offering known as Hemp Plant Reference Material, or RM8210. If their numbers match those from the NSIT to within an accepted margin of error, all is well. If not, they'll know they'll need to recalibrate their instruments or otherwise troubleshoot their methods.
Wow. That's crazy. For just under $800, a lab receives 3 1.5 gram sample packages of hemp. The samples are carefully measured by NIST for a variety of chemical compounds, including 8 individual cannabinoids such as CBD and Delta-9 THC, as well as 13 different toxic elements like arsenic and heavy metals. Although this reference material is composed of hemp, NIST said in its release, labs can use it to validate their measurements of both hemp and marijuana. And it will help companies in the fast-growing cannabis industry and state regulators ensure that cannabis products are safe and accurately labeled. NIST biologist Colleen Bryan, who was part of the team that developed the reference material, said that consumers ought to be able to rely on what's printed on product labels, which we've talked about in the past. We want to see more, labeling of what's in the actual product. If you buy a product that claims to have 25 milligrams of CBD per dose, then you should be able to trust that number. Exactly. Brian said, noting that some people use cannabis for medical reasons and may be particularly concerned about safety. This reference material will help ensure that the cannabis that they buy does not contain unsafe levels of toxic elements.
While the price tag for 4.5 grams of hemp might seem eye-popping, the amount is on par with NSIT's prices for other reference material samples. A can of meat homogenate, RM1546A, for example, goes for $1,138, and a jar of slurried spinach costs $840. Soy flour, that's $1,069 a package. The cost reflects not the value of the materials themselves, but the precision measurement that goes into determining their contents. Reference materials take years to develop and characterize, Walter Brent Wilson, an NSIT research scientist, told Marijuana Moment in a statement. Time-consuming and costly contributions include measuring to ensure that the material is homogeneous and stable, and measuring the constituent compounds and chemicals. It is important to note, even with the high cost, that NSIT reference materials are not sold for a profit, but only to recover the costs incurred from development and characterization, he added. To decrease any degradation in the material, such as decarboxylation, Wilson continued, samples are also stored at minus 20 degrees Celsius or minus 4 degrees Fahrenheit and monitored for stability, with documentation maintained throughout the lifetime of the material. Entire businesses can hinge on ensuring that laboratories' measurements hold up to scrutiny.
Absolutely, that's important, right? I get where they're coming from. But still, that's an insane cost.
Yeah, it's a tool. It's a tool.
Yeah. So it helps them calibrate their own instruments at their testing facilities. That's kind of cool. A farmer's crop or company's product can be seized or potentially destroyed if it turns out to be a hot material. So it's important to make the correct determination. Wilson said in the release under, oh shit, what happened there? I gotta bring that back up. I just lost my article. Stupid pop-ups. Stupid pop-ups.
Okay, period.
Where are we?
Wilson said in the release under federal law. Paragraph where it starts out with a farmer's crop.
There we are.
I can continue.
There we are. A farmer's crop or company's product can be seized or potentially destroyed if it turns out to be a hot material. So it's important to make the correct determination. Wilson said in the release, under federal law, any cannabis with more than 0.3% THC remains illegal. Under that threshold, the plant is considered legal hemp. Already, many products sold as hemp meet federal definition of marijuana. An NIST analyst earlier this year found that the vast majority of smokable hemp products contain product samples. About 93% contained more than 0.3% THC. Oh, that's interesting. Overall, NIST produces more than 1,000 product reference samples, which laboratories use all the time to ensure accurate product and safety information. Reference materials such as peanut butter, spinach, and infant formula are used to ensure food safety and accurate nutrition labels, NIST said. You can trust the results of your blood tests because of NIST reference materials such as cholesterol, glucose, and vitamin D, environmental contaminants, atmospheric gases, construction materials, and the list goes on and on. The new hemp sample is part of NIST's ongoing cannabis research program, which also includes the agency's so-called Cannabis Laboratory Quality Assistance Program, CAN-QAP. NIST began focusing more on cannabis testing following the passage of the 2018 Farm Bill, which legalized hemp nationwide.
NIST's CAN-QAP recently released a major report on cannabinoid testing in hemp and marijuana, part of an effort at standardization that also looked at toxic elements and moisture content in cannabis. Evaluating the precise levels of cannabinoids are especially important as hemp and marijuana markets continue to grow, as law enforcement works to better distinguish hemp and marijuana. For instance, federally funded research published earlier this year detailed 2 new ways researchers say they've discovered to test samples. The Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, also recently clarified that as far as it's concerned, the federal 0.3% threshold includes not only Delta-9 THC itself, but also the related cannabinoid THCA, which is converted into Delta-9 THC when heated, a process known as decarboxylation. Some experts have disputed DEA's interpretation of the statute on intoxicating hemp-based cannabinoids, however. And a federal appeals court ruled in 2022 that the way that existing rules are written makes Delta-8 THC exempt from control, as the law is silent on the minor cannabinoid while clearly legalizing hemp extracts and derivatives. Lawmakers at the state and federal levels have also begun looking at standards for Delta-8 THC, a psychoactive compound commonly derived from hemp products. Some congressional legalization, meanwhile, would ban the most consumable hemp-based cannabinoid products entirely. Consume most consumable hemp-based cannabinoid products entirely. Some industry stakeholders have said the change could even federally criminalize CBD products because the measure would apply to all ingestible hemp products with any level of THC.
Wow.
Some of that, I guess, is supposition or whatever, but or guessing. But going back to the contents of the initial story is $174 a gram. Yeah, it's not exactly what you're hearing. It's a part of the process of the
Research and development.
precision measurements.
Yeah.
Which it makes sense.
Right. They do that in the drug industry as well, right? When a new drug is created, it costs more because it's name brand. And then when it comes off patent, and then people can make it and, label it with their generic and right. So it's all in research and development dollars, I guess, in that sense. I'm glad they're not making a profit off of that. That's insane.
Yeah, that was kind of cool to see, to read that.
But it sounds like they do it for the food industry too. Yeah. So that's what their business is.
It was still a cool story because that's why I wanted to at least make sure we still covered it. We didn't skip it altogether. Because,
I didn't know that sort of stuff existed either. So
me neither. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know the full gist of the story because I only read just the first bit. I knew it was something to do with standardization for the lab equipment and stuff that can make sure that like as a benchmark guide type of thing. But aside from that, I had no idea of anything else on the story about that they do. There's stuff like that for the food industry and all that. That was pretty cool. So, anyways, you know what time it is. It's medication time.
That's right. It's time to pay some bills. So stay tuned for a word from some of our sponsors, and then we'll return with more articles making mainstream media news.
That's right. We'll be back in just a few minutes here on Ganja News Update here on NOK Network.
NOK Network presents Ganja News Update. Join joint host Tarra Simpson and Ron McNabb as they bring you the global cannabis news update. Catch the Ganja News Reporters weekly on Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time as they cover cannabis news from around the globe in a 60-minute video news podcast. Stay up to date with Ganja News Update, Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Follow and subscribe to NOK Network on your webpage, social media, and streaming sites, including Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and Rumble.
Psychedelic Tuesdays on NOK Network. Tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Psychedelic Reports. Ufa Alvarius is scouring the newsletters for stories being reported in mainstream media on psychedelic rights and passing them on to Bobby Puppets and Tara Simpson so they can bring you, our listeners, in their 60-minute video news podcast. Join us for Tuesday Evening News, weekly at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for all your news and information in the world of psychedelic medicine. Follow and subscribe to NOK Network on our webpage, social media, and streaming sites, including YouTube and Rumble.
Put it away for 30 minutes a day on IWK. The IWK 710 Daily Sesh is a virtual gathering where consumers meet up or a toke and some laughs at 7 p.m. Eastern nightly. Originally aired on Info with Kim's social media page, the IWK 710 Daily Sesh is now also podcasted on NOK Network. Rotating joint hosts bring you a variety of content during this 30-minute virtual smoke sesh. Take a break from the stresses in life and put it away for 30 minutes a day on IWK. Podcasted nightly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on NOK Network.
Advertising space available at NOK. Contact us for a rate sheet at knocknetwork.com. Send us a message on our social media platforms or email us at info@noknetwork.com.
Hey, dudes and dudettes. Enjoy the show, man.
And we're back from our medication session live here on Ganja News Updates on NOK Network.
That's right. We have another set of stories coming at you, making cannabis news. So let's get at it. And what happened there? What happened? I didn't share I closed the wrong screen off. Give me 1 second here, folks. There we go. Clicking buttons, and one more button to click. And there we go. This story is coming to us from Business of Cannabis. Czech Republic will pursue full legal adult use commercial cannabis market, leaked documents suggest. This is by Ben Stevens, July 15th, 2024. And goes on here to say the Czech government looks to be pursuing a full commercial adult use cannabis market as part of its Cannabis Management Act, according to leaked documents seen by Business of Cannabis. It comes just days after the architect and driving force behind the cannabis legalization project, National Drug Coordinator Jindřich Vobril, announced that he was resigning from his role but continuing to work on the project as an expert advisor. This effort now represents the best chance a country in the European Union has had yet to pass the legislation that would allow for a fully regulated commercial cannabis market as seen in Canada and certain U.S. states. While there are still potential roadblocks ahead for the legislation, both internally and from the European Commission, which has effectively derailed efforts from Germany and Luxembourg to do the same, it will set a precedent and provide a workable model for other countries to follow suit.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that the Czech Republic, it wasn't legal yet. Again, fucking the times, man. What happened in late May, Business of Cannabis reported that Mr. Vobril, who was officially commissioned by the Czech government to prepare a law for the regulation of cannabis in November last year, had completed 2 separate versions of the bill. One of these, which was made public in January, sparked outrage among cannabis advocates due to the apparent omission of plans for a full commercial market. However, this omission was actually a calculated political strategy to put pressure on the bill's opponents and attempt to prove the extent of public support for the regulated commercial market. As such, a second extended bill was prepared by Mr. Vobril and the government, which includes plans for such a market. Until now, there has been little indication of which of the bills the government would choose to pursue. With its next door neighbor and close trading partner, Germany, passing its own cannabis reform bill through the Bundestag last month, choosing not to pursue a full commercial market, some had suggested this could encourage the Czech Republic to follow its own more cautious footsteps.
What's in the draft bill? The submitted draft of the Cannabis Management Act would seek to legalize self-cultivation of cannabis for personal use, establishing a licensing and seed-to-sale tracking system, and set up German-style cultivation associations. Crucially, however, the bill also goes a step further than its German counterpart, suggesting in the opening paragraphs that in order to effectively tackle the illicit market, a regulated cannabis market. From the point of view of the National Drug Policy Coordinator, this proposal is insufficient, and I consider the Cannabis Management Act, which contains 3 pillars, self-growth, delegation, and regulated cannabis market, to be effective in minimizing the illicit cannabis market, it reads. I therefore take the liberty of submitting to the political representation a comprehensive bill on the management of cannabis, which extends the present proposal to include the pillar of the regulated cannabis market. In doing so, I am also meeting the expectations of some coalition partners. The proposal can be broken down into what it refers to as chapters. A seed-to-sale tracking system similar to the one currently being tested in Switzerland has been proposed. This system will be highly anonymized, with only the administrator given access to the raw data. To handle cannabis in any form, a person is required to register with the system and be issued a card containing a unique identifier which proves their authorization to handle cannabis. I got to take a break. You can take over there.
Yeah, I just lost where I was.
You had lost BS, right?
Yeah. Well, I was following along with you, and then I looked down, and I'm like, "Oh shit, where are we?" Persons authorized to handle cannabis will be split into 3 groups: those cultivating for personal use, registered members of cannabis associations, and users obtaining cannabis in specialized establishments. License holders must pay an application fee of 2,000, whatever their currency is, CZK, which will be put towards the state budget. Must be over 18 and can only hold a license for one of these groups at a time. Okay, so you can't do both. Yeah. Strict limits will be placed on where dispensaries or associations can be placed, while bans on cannabis-related advertising will be imposed. Furthermore, the government office is proposed as the main controlling authority due to its competence in the field of drug policy. Okay. It also proposes the decriminalization of up to 10 grams of cannabis for personal use for all citizens, defined as cannabis dry matter, cannabis extract, and tinctures or other form of processed cannabis plant in aggregate equivalent to not more than 10 grams of cannabis dry matter containing 10% of substances of the tetrahydrocannabinoid cannabidiol group. Fuck me. For licensed card holders in the first category, home cultivation, this limit is increased to 30 grams in public or 1,500 grams in their home. A maximum cultivation area of 3 square meters will also be imposed. License holders of the two categories, Cannabis Association members and customers of dispensaries, will also be able to possess 30 grams in public or up to 180 grams in their home. Cannabis dispensaries must only distribute cannabis to those specific license holders. Anyone who breaches these legal obligations will be liable to pay a maximum of $100,000, rising to $10 million for cannabis businesses. Campaign group Rationale Regulation, or RARE, said the proposed regulations with the new legislation, which will replace the current prohibitionist approach with control and regulation for the benefit of state and citizens. The Czech Republic would join the changes that have recently taken place in Germany and the United States, opening the way to rational regulation and addressing the negative impacts resulting from the current prohibitionist practice. Despite their positive review of the proposed bill, they also raised concerns about the recent resignation of its architect, Mr. Vobrel, stating, "We considered the departure of Gendrich Vobrel, a key expert on addiction, to be unfortunate and risky, especially in the view of the fact that his position in the negotiation of a comprehensive drug policy reform will change because of the position of the National Drug Coordinator. He could have addressed this issue not only professionally, but also in a non-partisan manner, which is now threatened." Interesting.
Yeah. Still all kinds of regulation. Why?
Yeah. Just keep regulating, because it's money.
Yeah. Follow the money trail, right?
Right. Yeah. It's like if you don't pay for your building permit application, you can't build, right? But as soon as you give them that fee, they're like, "Yeah, go ahead, build that. Cool."
Yep. Yeah, I just want to make one comment on that 3 square meter, or so 3 square meter. Well, that's not 3 cubed meter, right?
Right.
So you know what I'd be doing? I'd be building a special thing where I could grow vertically 3 square meter.
Yeah.
And then you go up.
Yeah, because 3 square meters isn't a lot of room.
That's like about 9 by 9.
Yeah, you really can't grow a whole lot of plants in that
type of thing. No, it's a small tent.
Yeah.
Whatever. But if you want something bigger, no, just go vertically.
Yeah.
Go up.
There's ways. Yeah.
They didn't say 3 cubed meters. Right?
Yeah, loopholes.
Right. Gotta look for those loopholes. They're there.
Absolutely.
You just gotta look hard enough. Anyways, we're gonna go over to our next story here. And this one, wow. Well, you can take this one away if you wish.
Yeah, it comes to us from Leafy, and it's written by Kevin Deneen, July 16th of this year. So Barcelona authorities order 30 cannabis social clubs to close. The Barcelona City Council has ordered 30 clubs to cease operating, creating an air of uncertainty for owners, staff, and members. So Calatonian authorities have taken further steps towards their goal of closing all cannabis clubs in Barcelona last week, as 30 venues across the city received notices ordering them to shut their doors until further notice. Deputy Mayor and Council for Security Albert Battle announced his plan during a speech in the last plenary session of 2023, when he said he was going to put an end to cannabis social clubs, explaining that the policy needed to be implemented with legal certainty, with rigor, and without flaws caused by haste. Wow. Since then, the city council has carried out raids on many clubs, and they have also conducted surveillance at some of the club's premises and customers. Inspectors said their raids intended to ensure clubs were following the rules, specifically those preventing club members from consuming cannabis on site and only allowing access to the club's residents of Barcelona. Wow.
Cannabis products were reported to have been confiscated by authorities so they could test them for their THC content. At least 50 clubs are thought to have been targeted by the authorities between December 2023 and the end of June 2024. Stefan, owner of La Creme Gracia, told Leafy his club was recently raided by authorities. They took samples of cannabis products away to be analyzed for their THC content. It could be a long process. We had a raid on the club in May. They took samples for analysis, and we are waiting for the next steps, a fine, order of closure, or both. I'm trying not to stress about the situation, do my job, and stay open as long as we can. A group representing Catalonian cannabis clubs, the Federation of Cannabis Associations of Catalonia, also known as CATFAC, CATFAC, issued a statement denouncing the recent closure orders and questioning the democratic nature behind the plan to close them all. Quote, in the latest offensive against cannabis social clubs, the city council has chosen to use justice as a tool to achieve its political objectives, violating fundamental rights in a democracy and limiting the participation of citizens who see their ability to influence deliberation and decision-making at the local level reduced. It is essential that the city council understands that the use of cannabis will not disappear by banning it, and that formulas must be sought based on consensus and dialogue and not on police or jurisdictional confrontation. It is vitally important to publicize and promote the role played by associations and their social clubs in reducing the possible risks associated with the use of cannabis, the document states.
Yeah. Last January, 180 academics and NGOs from 53 countries signed a letter condemning the council's regressive stance on cannabis and urged them to acknowledge crucial advancements in drug policies at the global level. Cannabis social clubs are privileged spaces for researching and implementing scientific, educational, and health-based interventions with cannabis users. The letter, which was organized by Barcelona-based entity ICEERS. Cannabis clubs, or La Asociación de Cannabis, as they are known in Spain, have been operating in Barcelona since 2001, when the club, the Cannabis Tasters Club of Barcelona, first began to grow and distribute cannabis to its members. There are currently around 650 clubs operating in the region of Catalonia, with just over 200 of them in Barcelona. In the past 5 to 10 years, the city, famed for its beautiful architecture and football team, has become a contender to rival Amsterdam's title as Europe's cannabis capital. But with the recent closures and more planned soon, the future of the cannabis scene in Barcelona and the whole of Spain appears uncertain. Wow. Wow, what a step backward.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
When I saw this story, I was like, what? Like, that's crazy.
I mean, don't people go to Spain for like a big cannabis thing every year? Spanibus or something? Like, is that a thing?
Cannabis. Our own Janine, the Cannabis Fairy, who does the Tuesday night sesh on the network, the IWK 710 Daily Sesh. She has been to Spanibus before.
Right.
And she's got connections in there.
Yeah. Oh, she's going to be so sad when she hears this. I think she's been to Barcelona, to be honest. I know she has traveled all over the place, so it wouldn't surprise me. But that's sad that they're closing all these clubs.
Yeah. It's crazy. So anyways, we're moving on to our last story for the evening here. This one here is coming to us from Marijuana Moment. And ding, 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 ding. Cannabis is more effective in treating musculoskeletal pain than medications are, patients say in new study. And I will say myself, of one who has suffered greatly from a lot of musculoskeletal pain, cannabis has definitely helped way more than any medications I was ever on. So let's see what this has to say. This story was published July 20th, 2024 by Ben Adlin. More than 1 in 5 patients who go to orthopedic surgeons with chronic musculoskeletal pain are using or have used some form of cannabis to manage their pain, according to a new study published this month. Of those, almost 2/3 said they felt cannabis was very or somewhat effective, while more than 9 in 10 said it was at least slightly effective. More than half, 57% claimed cannabis to be more effective than other analgesic medications, and 40% reported decreasing their use of other analgesic medications since starting cannabis use, the research found, adding that only 26% reported a doctor recommend cannabinoids to treat them I'll start that over again. Adding that only 26% reported a doctor recommended cannabinoids to them to treat their musculoskeletal pain, or MSK pain. Notably, among those who said they use cannabis to manage pain, the most commonly used cannabinoid was with CBD, 39%, followed by a hybrid of multiple cannabinoids, 20%, and almost a quarter, 23%, said they were unaware of their cannabis's composition. 23% that don't know, that's a big disservice that I think that Health Canada and doctors are doing to their patients.
Right. Or maybe they're just getting it from some like local guy who doesn't know, or, but they should be more educated as patients for sure on what they're consuming and what's working for them strain wise and what's not. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I've heard so many people say, "Oh, I've tried cannabis, it doesn't work." Well, did you really try it, or did you just try one strain or a couple of strains and decide it didn't work?
Right. And sometimes you need to give it, a couple of tries for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, just like with any other medication. If your cannabinoid system is deficient, it's just the same as being vitamin deficient. It takes a while for that to build up in your system and bring the inflammation down. It's not just pop something and it's a cure-all, right? It's not going to fix it instantly. Right. Sometimes you need to really build your system back up for it to function properly.
Yeah. And it goes on here to say, sorry, you can carry on if you want.
Oh, okay. Furthermore, among patients who were not cannabis users, roughly 2/3, 65%, said they were interested in using marijuana to manage their pain, but reported barriers to use, such as lack of knowledge regarding access, use, and evidence, and stigma. Although stigma was contrary to previous research and not a primary concern. I think stigma is a big one, especially in certain age groups. And again, the lack of of knowledge, right? I bet you if they surveyed those
Exactly, yeah.
patients, those patients would be in the above 50 or 65-year-olds category, because they're now aging and suffering with issues. But again, cannabis was such a prohibited substance when they were younger, right? So that stigma's still there, and I've seen it myself. The paper
Me too. Yep.
The paper published in the Journal of Cannabis Research didn't seek to definitively determine whether marijuana effectively managed MSK pain symptoms. Further double-blind placebo controlled trials are required to do that, it says, but instead intended to examine use and self-reported efficacy, as well as potential obstacles to use among patients who are non-users. The study was co-authored by 6 researchers from the University Health Network Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center in Toronto, Canada. The 629 participants were adults 18 years and older with chronic MSK pain who were visiting the orthopedic clinic at Toronto Western Hospital University Health Network for the first time consultation with an orthopedic surgeon. Of the 23% of patients who said they had ever used cannabis, maybe never, used cannabis to manage their MSK pain, 72% said it was part of their current treatment. The most frequent modes of use, meanwhile, were ingestion of oils, 57%. That's actually really good. Smoking, 36%, then vaporizing at 32%. So it goes to show that people are using like more edible forms to reach that deeper seated pain within their bodies versus the smoking, which helps, but it's not quite the same, right? So that's actually pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, that is cool. Yeah. So while some of the while there were some commonly reported side effects, such as dry mouth, 43%, and that a lot of that tends to be strain specific too. Fatigue, 23%, and a lack of motivation, 15%. About 2 in 5, 39% said they experienced no side effects. Many users indicated cannabis's effectiveness in treating other symptoms, the study adds, primarily sleep disturbances, 44%, anxiety, 26%, and headaches, 18%, although 43% said they experienced no relief of other symptoms. And again, I think a lot of that's just strain and strain choice with grouping profiles and THC percentages. And
even the
CBD,
the ones that are complaining of the lack of motivation, lack of energy, again, that could be a strain. If you're using a heavy indica, trying to function during the day may be a difficult thing. So a sativa or a
try
hybrid,
to find more balance,
right?
Or what I find helps a lot is mixing certain strains.
I do that too.
You get a whole different flavor profile, a whole different effect profile, everything.
Exactly.
And sometimes you get a strain that really doesn't really do it for you, but then you mix it with another one, and it's like, oh wow.
Exactly. It acts as like a stack, right?
Right, exactly. So anyways, as for where the patients obtained cannabis, many reported using multiple sources, including a dispensary or compassion club, 43%, Health Canada licensed provider, 34%, and from a friend or relative, 33%. Despite the self-reported relief that cannabis users said the substance provided them, researchers also found that people who used cannabis also suffered more pain. Researchers also found that people who used cannabis also suffered more pain and a wider array of other ailments. But they stopped short of attributing to those issues to cannabis, instead suggesting that patients with a broader range of, I can never get this word right, maladies, I don't know, maladies, might be more likely to seek out cannabis as an alternative or additional form of relief. Exactly, because we've tried so many different medications and shit, and we're tired of the cross side effects of them. So we want to try something different.
And we're not, patients who just suffer from a mild arthritis now and then, you know what I mean? Right. We're talking like most of our patient base in cannabis is people who, have extreme musculoskeletal disorders, people in wheelchairs, people walking with canes because they're so debilitated from their chronic RA or, MS or like very heavy duty patients, right? This isn't something that, they can just manage with pharmaceuticals or they wouldn't be where they are today. Exactly. So that's why you're seeing more of that patient base in this category because, they have so many more ailments and they're finding that cannabis works better for them than anything their doctors have tried so far, or maybe they've tried everything and nothing has worked, right? So that's,
that was what I was up against personally. Yeah.
Right. Well, and same for myself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a whole slew of pain conditions, and insomnia and, all of the anxiety, depression issues that come along with being chronically ill all the time. Not that I'm ill, but I struggle just as you do, right? But we get through it every day with cannabis. I function better on cannabis than I ever did before. So it's not going to cure me, but it definitely manages me way better.
Yeah, and I'll carry on with this next paragraph here. It is noteworthy that cannabis users exhibited a constellation of comorbid conditions, including a higher prevalence of depression and pain, and increased number of painful bodily areas, longer pain durations, and more frequent visits to pain clinics and specialists when compared to non-cannabis users, authors wrote. This observation prompts us to consider that the possibility that cannabis use may have arisen as a response to elevated levels of pain and dissatisfaction with existing therapeutic modalities. It is possible that a significant proportion of cannabis users turn to cannabis to seek relief from their heightened pain burden, which appears refractory to conventional treatments. Well, we just said that. And isn't this what patients have been telling Health Canada for the last 24 years?
Absolutely.
And they're this information is now just officially getting out there.
I know.
Wow.
It's so frustrating.
That means that everything we've said means nothing. Everything we've said means nothing.
It's fallen on deaf ears, or they heard it, but they just needed to find a way to claim it as their own information, right?
And how much harm and pain and death have they caused in their wake by not?
And how much time have they wasted? We could have been miles ahead already, and had this all ducks in a row, and it works, and let's really go at it. But no, they just want to drag their heels and, claim it as their own. Just saying. Yeah. So furthermore,
we got to get moving on this story, so I'll let you carry on. Yeah.
So furthermore, we observed that cannabis users, despite experiencing greater pain, tend to employ a broader array of medications such as muscle relaxants, opioids, and antidepressants in compared with non-cannabis using counterparts. They added, this may also highlight that cannabis may have been sought as an alternative means of pain management, especially in situations where previous therapies have yielded suboptimal results. Well, exactly. They don't want to be taking all that stuff that's not working for them. That's why they went to cannabis. Right.
Exactly.
Cannabis didn't lead them
to a bunch of medications because they may still be on a bunch of medications because of lack of proper access to cannabis too. For the
or lack of knowing how to get off of those medications, because doctors know how to prescribe them. They don't know how to wean you effectively. And that's very obvious within our system. I had to wean myself essentially with some guidance from support groups and stuff, right? Because doctors don't know. Their solution is, well, just stop taking it. Well, you can't with some medications. Some of them, even the slightest 10% decrease in your dose can cause a condition called TAWS, which is like a withdrawal syndrome. So again, patients, use caution when weaning off of medications, especially if your doctor tells you to go cold turkey. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just saying.
Exactly.
There is a way to get off them safely, and there is information out there for patients if your doctor isn't sure how to stop your medications. Reinforcing that possibility was that of one of the strongest. Reinforcing that possibility was that one of the strongest predictors for cannabis use was having symptoms consistent with chronic pain syndrome. Suggesting that patients with chronic MSK are possibly unsatisfied with conventional treatments and seeking alternative pain management. The strong predictor, however, was whether patients previously used cannabis recreationally. I found that previous recreational cannabis use was associated with a more than tenfold increase in the odds of using cannabis to manage MSK pain, this study says, but it calls that finding unsurprising as current cannabis users, current cannabis users, stupid.
Use.
I know I got to bring it back up now because, my phone just does it what it wants to do when it wants to do it. It's so frustrating. It's such a pain in the ass. Okay.
Unsurprising as current cannabis use has been shown to strongly influence one's perceptions of risk, stigma, and acceptability. Authors acknowledge that some of the perceived effectiveness may be due to a placebo effect, calling for more double-blind, placebo-controlled trials going forward. And if it is a placebo effect, hey, good on it, because at least it doesn't have all the side effects of the medications, right?
And it's
how's that bad?
So I don't see an issue.
I'm going to probably skim. Right. I'm probably going to skim through some of this here. It's just saying that new research also cites past studies found approximately 46% of patients felt more comfortable discussing their cannabis use with their physician after legalization, and 86% of orthopedic patients that were characterized as cannabis users stated that they would be willing to stop consuming cannabis if their surgeon stated it would adversely impact their surgery. Well, I know we're getting on here, but here's the issue with this, is the doctors don't know about cannabis. They're not allowed to know about cannabis in many cases. So rather than learning about it, they tell their patients don't use it for going into surgery. Well, there's studies out there that show that cannabis users who use cannabis just before surgery and everything fare off better on recovery afterwards.
Absolutely, I would agree with that.
And I've had that.
From a personal
I've had that happen on multiple. Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
Like
when I went for this most recent surgery, the nurse actually knew more about cannabis, I think, than the doctors did. And again, being a medical patient, being a medical patient, I continued to consume my cannabis right up until the evening before my surgery, even though it says 48 hours prior. And I told my nurse that, yes, I did. I mean, I cut back, but I'm still using my cannabis. It is my medicine. And they were okay with that. In fact, he actually kind of bantered with me a little bit about how he wishes more people would look into the natural, because it is coming back. So, and they didn't cancel my surgery. So that was good. And I was out of recovery so fast. They were shocked. They were like, "Are you sure you're okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, like, can I go home?" Once I came out of that anesthetic, I was ready to get running, man.
I was talking all kinds of crazy, saying, "Oh, you guys are awesome," and all that. And I said, "You might think it's the drugs that I was just on, but it's no." I said, "I'm fully with it right now. It's the cannabis that's brought me, like, I feel ready to go now." Except I had just had surgery. I had to follow their timeline for release. But I could have. I felt like I could have gone up then. Like
Yeah,
it was
I was
amazing.
trying to, and they were like, no, we got to do your blood pressure. We
Yeah.
need, we got to make sure you're okay, and then we'll move you to this next room. And I was like, by the time they moved me to the next room, I was already getting dressed, and I'm out of here.
Right. Same here. So, anyways, I'm not going to really read the rest of the story here because it is a little bit still to go, but it is a really powerful story. I suggest all our viewers who are listening right now to this to read the full story because it is amazing. Some of the information that is actually coming out there. They're talking about here. MSK pain study comes on the heels of federal research meeting in the U.S. that brought together representatives from federal agencies to discuss use of cannabis components to treat pain. Federal funded study in May indicated terpenes could be potential therapeutics for chronic neuropathic pain.
And
that's what I
talked about, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Another recent study published in the Journal of American Medical Association found that most marijuana consumers use the drug to treat health. Use the plant. Thank you very much. Please respect the plant. It is not a drug. It is a plant to treat health issues, at least sometimes, but very few considered themselves medical marijuana users. So obviously there must still be a lot of stigma down in the States with regards to that. Because I always consider I say I'm a medical cannabis user.
Yeah. Yeah, the stigma is still out there in every country. It's happening. It's going to take a long time to undo the prohibitionist mind state that the world was in over cannabis. Yeah.
Like the sky's not falling. People aren't crashing into bus shelters. People aren't like driving down the sidewalks. They're not scaling up buildings. They're not biting heads off bats.
No, they're not even sitting in drive-thrus forgetting what they ordered, like the Mad commercials. I don't know if you've seen any of those, those commercials, but they're absolutely ridiculous. Dude's sitting in a drive-thru and the lady's like, "Can I help you?" And he's like, and she's like, "One driving high combo," like. That doesn't happen, people.
way to reinforce the stigma, right?
Right. And I get, don't drive high if you're impaired, but medical users aren't impaired. I hate to tell you, but we don't get high. We get medicated and normal, just as any other.
I did initially, but I recognized that I was not able to drive.
Absolutely.
Because cannabis affects a different area in the brain with logic and reason than alcohol does.
Exactly. You have to know how any medication, whether it's an Advil, an Oxy, a Perc, right, how it affects you before you operate heavy machinery, including a vehicle, a chainsaw, anything. Know what you're doing and know how you feel. You don't get behind the wheel of a car if you're too tired to drive. Right.
Exactly.
Logic.
Anyways, this goes on long enough. We got to keep this show shorter. Next week we'll do it. But there's just so many good stories out there right now, isn't there?
Absolutely. There's so much to cover and so much to discuss about these articles, which is the part that I like is we don't always agree with what's being reported, or we can, state from our own perspective and opinion or experience why we disagree with that statement.
Exactly.
So that I think is so important to our cannabis community, is being able to have those discussions and see things from different perspectives.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that one. So we'll finish off with that. So I guess I'll just say to our viewers now, thank you all for joining us here this week on Ganja News Update on NOK Network, and for tuning into our video podcast on NOK Network's. We're now not on X anymore. You have to have a premium account on X. So we're on Rumble, Twitter. That's Twitter. That's X. Twitch. I'm going to have to update this. Several Facebook feeds. We're on those different social media sites. So
we're out there.
We're out there. You can find us somewhere.
Absolutely. We really hope
Over
you've
to you.
enjoyed our update today on mainstream media coverage of cannabis news and information from around the globe.
And many thanks to our sponsors for making this show possible. And thank you to my joint host, Tarra Simpson, and to you, our listeners, for joining us here each week on Meducation Mondays with Ganja News Update on NOK Network. Good night, everyone. See you next week. Peace.
Ganja my meditation, ganja my brain. Ganja we take away my stress and strain. Ganja my meditation, ganja in my brain. Marijuana take away my stress and pain. Ganja in my meditation, ganja in my brain. Marijuana take away the stress and pain. Ganja is the medication, ganja is the cure. Police of them a fight the marijuana for sure. Purify me heavens and they make me feel pure. 100 way to Cali, we be bring it on tour. Ganja in the meditation, ganja in my clothes. No offense, I'm something marijuana around you. Ganja in me daily, ganja me currency. Ganja is the currency and daily pay. Give me the revelation.